So you've got stepwise motion. Melodies move stepwise. You should have occasional leaps to make it more interesting. You want to have a single climax note that you're headed to, and then you come away from it. No multiple leaps in a row. So when you have these occasional leaps, you don't want them back to back, basically. 5, it's okay to have back-to-back leaps as long as it's outlining a triad, all right? No tritones and no sevenths, so no movement of, a tritone, an augmented fourth or diminished fifth, and no movement or leaps of a seventh. So that's 6, and you'll hear that that's a big, big, big rule, is that no tritones. Avoid all tritones at all costs. You can avoid tritones by adding a B flat. So that's one of the mechanisms to avoid breaking this rule of no tritones. 8, you don't want to have repeated figures. So you don't want to have like E, C, E, C, E, C. That's a really boring cantus firmus. All right, 9, no sequences. So you don't want E, C, D, B, C, A. Also kind of a boring cantus firmus melody. No melodies that outline tritones. So again, avoid those tritones. No tritones, even if they're hidden within the melody. And then you want to have your range within 1 octave, because people are not great singers and they don't have a huge range. So if you make it more than an octave, it makes it hard to sing for everybody. So those are the rules for writing melody. And I will step aside. You can pause or do whatever you need to do to try and get this down. And these rules will also be posted, so if you're trying to scramble to write these down, don't worry about it. And examples outlining all of these rules are also in your book. So just FYI, I'm going to erase these, and we're going to go over the rules for first species counterpoint. There are a few rules here as well. So now, when we're dealing with first species counterpoint, this is just dealing with the one melody line. It's dealing with the cantus firmus as well as the counterpoint that goes on top of it. So think about the 2 lines like what we were talking about earlier. So when you're writing first species counterpoint, you are going to always start your counterpoint with a perfect unison, perfect fifth, or perfect octave. So, first species rules. Always start with P1, P5, or P8. All right, that's number 1. So that's how you're gonna start. And if you'll see in figure 8.16, they give you a little tutorial on just exactly how to do it. Let's see. So at the ending, when you're ending a counterpoint, this is rule number 2. The cantus firmus will end with a descent by step to the final mode. All right? So the way to do this is, let's see, the cantus firmus ends with a descending either half step or whole step, major second or minor 2, to the tonic of the mode, all right? We can still refer to it as the tonic instead of the final of the mode. So just know that that's, the beginning note, whatever, the key is for that mode. Right? So if it starts on D and it's in D, it's in Dorian, it's going to end stepwise by D. All right? And there's actually very nice, if you look at 8.17, when you're doing your first species counterpoint, you figure out what mode you're in, and then all you have to do is take whichever, figure out whether you're Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian, whatever, and you literally, these last three measures, you copy and paste exactly what they have here. These are like the standard endings that you have to use, all right? So they're like copy and paste type things. You just plug them right in, okay? So that's how you end these things. You notice most of them end on some sort of half step. So you've got to sharp the second to the last note in the counterpoint part. So yeah, so there's that. So in the Dorian, Mixolydian, and Aeolian mode, there's going to be a raised leading tone. So I'm going to write that down as rule number 3. Although this is pretty easy to just sort of plunk in. Dorian, Mixolydian, and Aeolian modes. End with a raised leading tone before the last note, the final note. Okay? Rule number 4. So these are the allowable intervals in first species counterpoint, all right? So you are allowed to have allowed intervals. You can have a major third, a minor third, perfect fourth, perfect fifth, major sixth, minor sixth, perfect eighth, a major 10, and a minor 10. So we're not allowed to stretch the tessitura past a 10. All right, so keep that in mind. And notice, most importantly, what is not on the list. All right? What is not on the list? Verboten. Big time. You cannot have any of these at all. Any of these intervals between the two voices. Verboten. Don't know how to spell verboten, but that's close enough. Major second. Minor second. Augmented fourth. Diminished fifth. Major 7 or minor 7. None of them. And actually perfect unison is on this list except in the case of the very first note, all right, and the last note. Well, you can have an octave. But that's, you can start out with a perfect unison on your very first beat. Otherwise, can't come back, all right? So no perfect unisons. And these are a definite no-no. Mostly because they're just really dissonant and people didn't want to listen to them. So, and you notice that these guys, you can all make up chord structures with these, right? So the perfect fourth, perfect fifth, they all fall into chords. These guys, not so much. At least not until we get to seventh chords. So anyway, yeah. So, and then there are all these rules about contrary and oblique motion. So I'm going to talk a little bit about these. So in the case of contrary motion, so if you have two two notes moving from a perfect consonant, which is considered a perfect fourth, perfect fifth, or perfect octave. All right, so fourth, fifth, or octave, the perfect intervals. So if they're moving from, they need to move in contrary or oblique motion. So in this case, we've got an, let's say a D and an A. So that's a perfect fifth between the two of them, right? Actually, let's move you down. Okay, so if we've got our D and A, think about these being on two different staffs, but this is a little bit easier. We've got a perfect fifth between these two, right? Now, if we're moving from a perfect fifth to, say, a perfect fourth, right? Or if we want a perfect, yeah, let's do perfect fourth. So if we're doing perfect fifth to perfect fourth, they have to move in either contrary or oblique motion. So contrary motion means that they're going to move opposite each other, all right? So they're either both going to go in or they're both going to go out, right? We only have one choice, which is to go in for a perfect fourth. So we can have maybe this guy jump up to F. That doesn't work actually. So in this case, let's see, let's have that go up to perfect octave. So if we have this going to a perfect octave, we can go down to C, like that, and then up to C here. So this one's moving this way, it's moving up, this guy's moving down, all right? The other option is that they're moving in oblique motion, which means one note stays the same and one note moves either up or down. So in this case, we have our D and our A. So this is contrary. Perfect fifth. If we go to a perfect fourth here, we'll have our oblique motion. So we can stay on the A, and then the D can move up to E. So this one stays the same, and then this one's going to move up. This is oblique. Okay? So if it's a consonant to a consonant, perfect consonant. So 6, perfect intervals. Contrary or oblique only. The thing is, if we have them move the same way, that's going to risk having something called parallel fifths. All right? If we have a perfect interval moving to an imperfect interval or consonants, so say a perfect fifth to like a major third, something like that, right? So this is an imperfect consonant. So the major minor 3, major minor 6, and the major minor 10th, which are essentially just thirds, these can all be, these are all considered imperfect consonants. Consonant because they're still harmonious, okay? These are non-consonant, major second, minor second, augmented fourth, they're dissonants, right? As opposed to consonants. So if we move this one, we have our D and our A still. These guys can move in similar motion. All right, so I can have him pop up to G and the top note pop up to B. So they can both move up at the same time or both move down as long as it's a perfect going to an imperfect. All right.